Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, and good afternoon, everybody who is watching live my this Facebook Mathematics for All and Free for All Mathematics class. Today, as you see the topic on the screen, first of all, I apologize. Last week, as I mentioned in my earlier program, there was some new changes by Facebook where every time I go on live, I have to select the audience, and somehow the audience was selected as just a private. Private means that that was just going towards me. Not everybody or and public people were not able to watch. So today I have selected as public. I hope that this program is going live and everyone who is waiting on this live session, they are able to watch this program. I have also changed the privacy setting on the last one, which I found out today that it was done wrong with this new changes with this Zoom and Facebook. You can say this, their collaboration or their interlink with each other has caused this issue. I'm confident this time it's okay. So today topic is identifying restrictions on variables in a linear relation. As you see that when we have a linear relation, sometimes we have to put restriction, a minimum value and the maximum value. Very good example used today, which I'll be discussing shortly, which help you in understanding that why we need those minimum or maximum restriction on the linear relations. Because without having those restrictions, in some cases, your numbers are going to be way out, and those relations were not going to be able to help you in calculating any data or any information. So those linear equations or linear relations will not be able to help us in doing our jobs. That is why there are some relations where we need to put minimum and maximum restrictions or minimum or maximum value ranges, that this value should not be going less than this or this value should not be going more than this. So let me explain you uh, how this equation, I have written this equation as C, which is capacity of a hall, which is 50 plus 25n, and I'll explain you how this 50 plus 25n works. Let me explain you. The linear relation based on a realistic situation often requires that restrictions be placed on the variables. This is because the possible value of the variables are not infinite, so that we won't get infinite value, which beyond the calculation. So we need to put some limits on it. For example, if one of the variables in an equation represents hours, the value can never be negative because time cannot be negative. So if we are working on a relation which identifies the number of hours, so that number or that relation should not be giving us any negative value because the time is not negative. So that means we need to put a restriction on that relation so that the relation will never generate a negative number. uh, there are also times when there is a lower restriction and an upper restriction. So as I mentioned earlier, in some cases we only need a low restriction, and in some cases we have to put brackets or put limits or restriction on lower or the higher value as well. For example, as the equation I have written on the screen, C is equal to 50 plus 25n represents a linear relation where C is the cost of holding a party in a hall and n is the number of guests. So the number of guests must be a whole number, but it cannot be more than the number of people the hall capacity is. So if the capacity of the hall is 2000 people, that means the maximum restriction we can have on this equation, that this equation should never generate any number more than 2000 or more than 3000, whatever the maximum number is. So this is how the maximum restriction number can be implemented on this relation. If the capacity is 125, then n is restricted to the whole number less than or equal to 25. So if we are telling them that the minimum requirement is 125, so we are telling them that it should not be less than 125. And then maximum, if there is 2000, 3000 number, we can say it should not be more than those number. So in this way, this is to put an upper restriction on C, And if the restriction on N is 125, then the upper restriction on C is founded by substituting the value of N, which is 125 now, into the equation. And when we insert that number N as 125, our total number comes to 300 and 3175. So let's see how this will work. So let's say if we are telling that our N should be 125, mean that let's say if we have 50 is starting plus 25 into 125, that means the value will be what? The value will be 3, sorry, this is 50 and this would be 3125. I believe so that I have written the right number because I'm just doing the mental calculation. I'm sure, yes, this is 3125. And then when we add this, our number comes to 3175. So this is our maximum number. So this is how we can explain that how these linear equations sometimes requires us to put restriction. As I mentioned, if we are talking about any hours, the number of hours or labor hours or something, in that particular situation, we might don't need to put a restriction on the maximum number. But in that particular case, we do need to put restriction on the lower side that hours cannot be negative. So the restriction we have now in any particular relation where we are discussing hours is that these cannot be negative. So we are going to find out how we can manage that particular linear equation, and we should be putting a low restriction, that is no negative hour. In this particular, as I mentioned, we are taking an example of a banquet hall where we are restricted that it will start with 50 and then multiple each, every basic charge is 50, and then each individual is costing us $25 each. And this is how the capacity of the hall is 125 maximum people. That means that we can only use this 125 number, and this is giving us the cost cannot go more than this, and similarly the number cannot go more than 125. So in this particular example is a very clear example to understand how we have the restrictions lower end and the higher end as well. So I hope that you were able to understand in linear equations sometimes we need to put restrictions, and this is what the topic of the day was, how we can identify restrictions on a variable in a linear relation. I mentioned about the hours. Hour cannot be negative, so low restriction is cannot be 0 or less than 0. And particularly this banquet hall example, 50 to start with, and then each individual cost 125, and 125 means that the hall is charging 125 per person, and then we have $25 additional for the person, and the maximum capacity of the hall is 125 people. So now when we put 125, so our maximum number is 3175. This is the total cost cannot go more than this, number of people cannot go more than this. So this is how we are putting restriction higher end and restriction on the lower end on any particular situation. Please do try to solve some of the examples given in this book, and if you are having challenges to understand, do not hesitate contacting me at 416-571-1163. You can contact me through Facebook Messenger. You can directly send me message through my this WhatsApp, and I am always open. If you have any assignments, any question which you are having difficulty, please send me the picture of that particular question or assignment. I'll try my best to set up a time where I can explain you on a video call, on a WhatsApp video, or I have done in the past with some of the individuals who have called me and requested me. I set up exactly same setup on Zoom and explain on my board those challenges those students were having. Once again, this whole initiative I've taken for during this lockdown, and I'm continuing this. All those areas which are currently getting into the lockdown or red zone areas, my request to everyone who is watching this program, I'll take this opportunity to request, stay home, stay safe. Please follow the social distancing before it get out of control. God forbid if any of us or any of our family member get affected, might be that's the way we are going to realize before it get too late, before it get to knocking at your doors and getting into your homes. Stop it outside your home. There's no need of getting out for, especially these days when situation is getting worse. Designate one family member to go out for essentials. Other than that, stay home. If we are alive, if the people are alive, we can enjoy life. We can have all those benefits and all those activities in the life. But God forbid, I like somebody's quotation that it's good to be 6 feet away, or doing the 6 feet social distancing, and better than going 6 feet down. I hope that these messages are helping people to understand how critical this is. And this situation is getting worse and out of control. We are hoping these vaccines will kick in and will help us. But until then, we need to do our part. Governments cannot do unless we step up. Governments can only guide us. Governments can only, local, municipal, provincial, federal, can only give us whatever the best they could have done. And they have done an excellent job at all levels. This is our part to follow. And I know we've just gone through many of the social activities and social events. We are getting close to Christmas. This is not going to be regular Christmas as we celebrate all the time. The holiday season coming. Please, please stay away from all these activities and stay within your loved ones, within your family, so that we can start our next year with a very successful, very positive, and very energetic year in coming days. Thanks again for watching this program. Do share this sessions and these mathematics classes with your family and friends who are in needs, and do not hesitate contacting me if you still need any help. Thanks, and enjoy your Sunday, and see you next Sunday.